Jones was called the grandmother of all agitators. She was an extraordinary organizer of miners, steel workers, mill workers, and all working Americans about 100 years ago. She was one of the primary forces behind the eventual ban on child labor, the 8-hour working day, and creation of laws for safe working conditions in our country. Her feisty spirit inspired Americans to stand up and organize together to demand change. What would Mother Jones have to say to us if she were alive today? We're about to find out with a theatrical rendition that invokes her fighting spirit and her words, reflecting on some of the daunting social issues of her times and our time, and inviting us to agitate and organize for needed change. Please welcome a local activist, Sonia, as she reminds us to include theater in our toolkit with her theatrical performance, Mother Jones, Back to Agitate.
Starting in my 60s, I became an agitator, a hellraiser for human dignity. I organized and unionized the men and boys in the mining camps, the women and children slaving away in the mills. Newspapers call me the most dangerous woman in America. Everyone else just called me Mother Jones. I was no stranger to Colorado. Why, I was arrested here on several occasions, organizing the miners in Cripple Creek and Trinidad and the steel mill workers in Pueblo. I was put under military arrest for the protection of society. Ha! Protection of high society, mind you. The likes of Rockefeller, who owned the Colorado Fuel and Iron Company, and most of your public officials. 2 of your governors threw me out of the state, acting more as Rockefeller corporate rats than as representatives of the people. I was back within days doing what needed to be done. There was a great deal needing to be done. Those were hard times, not just for many, but for most. The mining companies were indeed the worst, extracting maximum human misery for their maximum profits. They controlled the press and the government, they did, with their vast wealth and influence. When the Southern Colorado miners went on strike, they asked the governor to bring in the army to Ludlow, Colorado, that temporary tent camp of striking miners and their families, where they had them massacre men, women, and children for daring to ask for a living wage. We had to fight like hell for a living wage, for an 8-hour working day, for the right to unionize, for a ban on child labor, and for every child's right to education. You're sleepwalking through history, allowing the same forces of limitless greed to roll back all that I and so many fought so hard for. Got jailed, beaten, evicted, starved, and shot for. Do you not see them now? Rolling back. Unions, pensions, a living wage. Taxing your hard-earned wages, but not their unearned passive income. Exporting jobs and whole industries to slave wage countries. Trying to auction off and privatize government functions, prisons, postal service, your Social Security savings, university student loan programs, and even the armed forces as cash cows for corporations. What about today's mining companies? Taking over your state with horizontal hydraulic fracturing of shale. They're paying their workers well this time, but not nearly enough to pay the medical bills when they start to succumb to the terrible poisons they're working with. They're not just extracting oil and gas. They're extracting your community's quality of life and the health of your children. They're turning the whole state into one big mining camp, turning you into the canaries in the mine, spewing toxic emissions, poisoning vast amounts of water permanently, storing it underground where it threatens to contaminate your water supplies, permanently. In your state of Colorado, where there's no water to spare, there's no future in that. Water is life. Especially since the climate change is clearly upon you, with temperatures rising, oceans acidifying, superstorms, species vanishing. When you reach those climate collapse tipping points, it's irreversible. There's no fixing it. That's the end of decent life on the planet. Wake up, corporations. Fictional persons are infesting your government and stealing you blind. Why, they're extracting the very future out from under you. Those giant corporations have you hypnotized with their fantasy television shows and incessant advertisements, convincing you you're not nearly attractive enough, young enough, slim enough, hairless enough, manly enough, and much too boring, wrinkled, and under-medicated to be of any value. Or to think for yourselves. And all the while they act as if they're doing you a favor with this commercial advice, this litany of insults to your human dignity. Turn off the damn television. Restore your sanity and your imagination. Take back your government, your economy, and a viable future for the planet, too. There have always been the takers and the makers. The takers are the true criminal class. We call them robber barons because they robbed us all. They robbed us of fair pay and a decent life. They robbed us of representative government. Buying off politicians or buying political office. I met a man in prison who was in for stealing a pair of shoes. I told him if he had stolen a railroad, he'd be a U.S. senator. The takers take the lion's share, not just out of greed, but as a strategy to pit workers against one another for jobs and survival, to discourage people from working together, organizing for a decent society. In my time, they brought in a huge number of foreign workers to work for less, to try and bust up the unions. That's why I helped to organize an international union of all workers, the industrial workers of the world, to put a stop to the pitting of one country's labor against the other. In your time, the takers, the master criminals, are the owners and CEOs of giant transnational corporations. They're still robber barons, robbing each of you, but on a bigger scale than in my time. In 2008, America's biggest bank corporations swindled trillions of dollars out of pensions and savings and the economy with their speculative gambling schemes and criminal financial manipulations. Bailing them out with taxpayer dollars, billions of them, crippled economies across the world and transferred their gambling debts to you and the next generation. Your taxpayer dollars that used to pay for education and the EPA and courts now pay off the interest on their crime spree. They held up not just a bank, but entire economies. And they got you to pay their getaway car. Passing off their criminal gambling debts to you was the biggest transfer of wealth in history. It's the most brazen grand theft that's ever occurred. It's not too late to throw off their criminal debt and get your money back. Demand back the bailouts with interest, but do it fast, because the next heist they're planning is even bigger. With one vehicle, they'll ravage small business and labor across the globe, privatize and destroy social programs, ride roughshod over rule of law, and assume power greater than that of governments. They intend to privatize, for their maximum profit, all the resources of the planet. Patenting natural plants and seeds, replacing farming all farming, with industrial agriculture, privatizing water, promoting unlimited fossil fuel extraction, and the unnatural disasters associated with that. They intend to privatize not only government-run programs, but government itself. The vehicle they plan to use is transnational trade treaties, such as the Trans-Pacific and the Transatlantic treaties, written by 600 corporations whose specific terms remain secret, even to members of Congress, until presented to them for snap fast-track vote. They say these free treaties will liberalize markets, remove regulatory barriers, promote trade and prosperity by assuring foreign investor confidence. But in plain English, they'll be elevating the rights of foreign investors and corporations above the rights of communities and states, and even national sovereignty, by rendering unenforceable any laws that impede their extraction of maximum profit. For if a court tries to stop a foreign company from breaking a law that protects health or safety, or would prevent them from taking over a public program, the corporations would take their case to an international tribunal, conveniently composed of 3 corporate lawyers who meet in total secrecy. They consider only one question: does the law or court ruling or program that's publicly funded limit their current profits, or could it hinder their potential future profits? If so, they have the right to sue for millions of dollars, as they've done already under previous trade agreements, for unknown billions of dollars, since only some of those cases have been made public. In my day, we called these sorts of schemes racketeering, obstruction of justice, and extortion. This is extortion of public monies as a penalty for having laws for the common good. You know, the mafioso used to run extortion rackets, whereby they'd collect money up front and assure protection. That's been outlawed. This is a scheme whereby they'll destroy laws, destroy a working economy, destroy representative government, public health and safety, not just with impunity, but with additional extorted penalties and maximal profits. In my day, we would have called this a government coup, a hostile takeover of government by an unelected body. That's the cold-blooded work of the true criminal class for you. The most diabolical crime spree ever imagined for global pillage and plunder beyond imagination. If the supreme legal principle becomes corporate right to maximal profit, it spells the end of decent society. For economic stability, rule of law, and representative government would come to an end. Unlimited extraction of resources results in unlimited environmental damage and the foreclosure of a future, a viable future. These treaties are ultimately genocidal. Your acceptance of them would be suicidal. In the name of all that's holy to you, you must assure that these treaties and their fast tracking be rejected, and that supreme investor rights and secret corporate tribunals be removed from current trade treaties. You're thinking, I have no vote in these treaties. What can I possibly do? I want to remind you, I raised hell all over this country as an old woman, and as a woman, I had no right to vote. You don't need a right to vote. To raise hell for needed change, you need your convictions, your voice, and your commitment to organize with others to get the job done. We organized the industrial workers of the world in 1905 with no telephones, no copiers, no fax, no internet, no texting, or Facebook. Think of what you could do if you set your mind to it. But you'd better set your mind to it soon, before Congress votes on the trade treaties and sets us all on a fast track to hell. The next generation won't hold against you what you've done. They'll hold against you what you've left undone. It's clear what you need to do to reclaim your world from the corporate pirates and set a decent course for you in the next generation. Get out there and agitate and organize.